You may have heard, folks, that Muppet Vision 3D, Jim Henson's last ever creation, especially related to the Muppets, that is. Unfortunately, that closed forever over the weekend. I believe June 7th was the last date of operation, if I'm not mistaken, for Muppet Vision 3D. And it's a sad, sad fate indeed. So let's go ahead and go to a story covering it, and maybe, perhaps, Disney is regretting their decision just based off of how popular the last day was attended. This from That Park Place. Muppet Vision 3D closing day sees fan passion and genuine love for Jim Henson as Disney shutters beloved attraction forever. This by Marvin Montanaro, June 8th, 2025. Quote, saying goodbye, why is it sad? Makes us remember the good times we had. Much more to say, foolish to try. It's time for saying goodbye. This line, sung by the late Richard Hunt in Muppets Take Manhattan, accurately depicts the mood of hundreds of fans who flocked to Disney's Hollywood Studios for the closing day of Muppet Vision 3D, the final work of legendary Muppet creator Jim Henson. It was a showing of genuine love and heartfelt passion in the face of Disney's cold corporate decision to shutter the classic attraction forever in favor of a Monsters, Inc. themed land. On June 7, 2025, Muppet Vision 3D played its final performance at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And while Disney executives may be moving on, the fans certainly weren't. In a genuine display of love and support, hundreds of guests packed the extended queues and overflow areas to show their love for the final work of a great man. The show, originally created by Jim Henson himself and one of the last projects that he ever worked on, has long stood as a comedic tribute to the beloved Muppets, a perfect encapsulation of the heart, creativity, and magic that defied not only the Muppets, but Jim Henson's life itself. On closing day, Muppet Vision 3D became a symbol of something else, a growing divide between Disney's decision makers and the people who actually attend their theme parks. Very interesting to really illustrate, folks, just how insane the last day for the Muppets actually was. Well, you can see this post right here, laughingplace.com. With about half an hour to go, the Muppet Vision 3D line is just into the tunnel to Batu, posted at a 45-minute wait. And that was with a half an hour left to go that day. But earlier in the day, and that's 45 minutes. I mean, that is absolutely stunning just by itself. But earlier, well, here you go. The queue actually went in to Rise of the Resistance. It went all the way into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That's how long the line actually was. In fact, the line was so long that it actually eclipsed Rise of the Resistance in terms of wait time. You can see right here, Muppet Vision 3D on your right with 45 minutes and 35 minutes on your left for Rise of the Resistance. That's Disney's brand new attraction, at least for Disney's Hollywood Studios, that opened up in 2020, or actually November of 2019, if I recall correctly. Folks, guys on the panel, what do you think about the enthusiasm that this attraction still brought, even up to its final day?
What I think is that the Disney people, the dyed-in-the-wool Igerites, are going to say, okay, so we've now satisfied all those people, but they're a minority. Hell with them. They'll buy whatever we give them. They will not be impressed because that's just how they are wired. And it just shows how out of touch they are.
Yeah, and they're going to put in Monsters, Inc., which I know has been talked about a few times. But the fact that they're choosing like a middling Pixar franchise to go into there, it's not going to it doesn't have that same
and if you look at where the Pixar thing is going, they didn't have to take this out to do it. They just didn't.
No.
It's going way at the back. So it could have blended wonderfully. See there's Muppet circled in red, and it's the building is still there in the monsters concept, huh?
That's the most amazing part about this. You could have effortlessly actually incorporated the Muppets into a Monsters, Inc. themed land. Now, look, they're not exactly the same. I'm not saying that they are. But you could imagine a thematic expression by which the Muppets actually make sense in that world. And unfortunately, they're not even attempting that. In this brain-dead decision
How long has it been since they cared about things like that anyway?
That's a fair point. I mean, it's this idea that, if you have an immersive land, everything in there has to be themed appropriately to that themed land. And it's like, why? That's a made up arbitrary rule. But by the way, your your top competition in the form of Universal has perfected. You don't have to do that at all. You're just, taking that design liberty.
You know what the real example is of what you just said? Zelda's in Nintendo's shop without Zelda even being in the park.
That's a fair point.
That's the opposite. I mean, it's like
the thematic consistency doesn't have to suck fun out of their projects, and that's unfortunately what we've seen from Disney, even in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, for example, because they're trying to immerse you in this highly themed environment to such an extent. Well, it's actually sucking the fun out of it, because now you have an arbitrary timeline that you have to, stick yourself to. And that, unfortunately, doesn't allow for the characters that people want to see, and especially represented in a Star Wars themed land. Well, now they can't. And it's just, it's
there
brain
a
dead.
projected actual opening for the Muppet ride or the Monsters ride?
I don't think so. But if
not.
we're going on Disney's timeline, it's probably 3 to 4 years, I would think.
Yeah. So, and it's not where this is, and it's way back in the back, and it's not even as big in real life as it looks in those drawings, because part of it is just a wall painted like a sky behind that Monsters peak, or whatever you want to call it, that pointy building in the front. So you have to wonder, what does it cost to run this ride that was so prohibitive? They said, get rid of it. We'll save 10 cents.
Well, yeah. So you have a number of animatronics associated with this specific attraction. Obviously, those have maintenance costs. And then you have maybe one live actor or so. I believe the Sweetums kind of walkout character that happens mid-show there.
Yeah, and some cast members to handle the lines and whatever. But still...
well, you're still going to have that with a new show.
And, if there was a new show, that's what I'm saying. All this time when both are down, there's no expense except the cost of relationships with your fans, things like that. Those don't matter.
But what was the actual cost and energy? And I know we got people in the chat who might know the answer to this question, but like when it comes to comparing the animatronics for that ride versus, I don't know, like something like Tiana's Bayou, right, where things are breaking down all the time. Is it?
You mean ones that have proven that they work versus ones that never do? The cost?
Yeah, the ones that have been because I'm sure they have upgraded the Muppet ones over the years.
And for that matter, the pizza restaurant was never great, but it soaked up people and it fed people and it made money. You have to think, because pizza and pasta are pretty low input cost items as restaurants go.
Culture Casino, that is, probably has a little bit more insight into the specifics on this audio animatronics technology. But I can tell you right now that as audio animatronics get older, obviously you're faced with two options: either maintain what you have, right, or completely replace them. Because at a certain point, the tooling that you would require to provide for aging audio animatronics has to be either custom done or it's very niche and hard to come by. You have to have maintenance technicians that are able to even service those old audio animatronics, versus if you have new robotics technology that people are trained for, then it becomes a little bit easier to do that.
Except, no, it doesn't, because we have all these new people for the new stuff at Tiana, and it still doesn't work.
Right, exactly. So
your theory is marvelous, but where the rubber hits the road, it ain't necessarily so.
Well, and it's, judging by how Disney actually goes about this stuff, I don't even know if they understand how the theory meets the rubber, as you said there, Lou. Lauren, I want to go ahead and give it to you here.
Before I say anything, how's the audio? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sound good to me.
All right. So the thing that I think is the strangest about this whole thing is it shows a lack of knowledge of their own catalog. Because if you remember when Jason Segel came out and did the Muppets revival movie here a few years ago, it was an evil corporation that was planning to tear down their theater. And they had to get things going again in order to save the theater. It's like they were literally the evil villains in this movie. I don't know what they think they're doing here.
Engulf and devour, redone.
It's very much the same thing that they're doing with Rivers of America. They seem to have this idea. I think their thinking is that there's a generational shift going on, and the generation that is going to be consumers in the future have no institutional knowledge of the attractions that they're bulldozing. They think that kids don't read Mark Twain anymore, so they're not familiar with Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn. They think that no kids have seen The Muppet Show. They're not familiar with The Muppets. The last movie was what, 15, 20 years ago?
No.
Mm.
They just think they're dead.
Then
But
why are they putting him in the roller coaster?
I suspect that's temporary. I don't think that's going to be a permanent attraction. And it's also done to appease the people that are yelling about this now. But the
Right.
foolishness that I think that is going on is that they think that the IPs that they are now going to put out there, remember the Cars attraction that they're planning to put in for Rivers of America, what year did Cars come out?
It's
like
gonna actually celebrate its 20th anniversary next year.
Right. It's like you've missed the mark for that too. It's like if you think any of the IPs that you're now going to put in are going to have the kind of staying power that these attractions did, that were core to the heart of what made Disneyland, specifically there for Rivers of America, I think you're nuts. And that's part of the problem. I get that there are people that say, look, Tom Sawyer's Island was always practically abandoned. Nobody ever goes there. It's empty. Who knows even what it is? But there's a character and atmosphere to the park. That was the park within a park area where you could go and relax and enjoy the scenery.
And it reflects on everything around the river. It reflects on everything from Liberty Square all the way around.
And not only that, you've got that paddle wheel boat there, which I'm sure is probably expensive to maintain. But where else are you going to be able to have that experience again? You know, there is something to the preservation of the attractions that made Disneyland what it is. And I would also say to Brian Scott Patterson, yeah, you can get off my porch.
Well, I'll say this, and Steve, I'll go ahead and throw it to you after I make this very cogent point right here. I think, Lauren, you really hit on something, because it's like, can they necessarily compete with their past? Here, I'll bring up my tweet that illustrates this point nicely. You can see the enthusiasm from the last showing here. I mean, the packed house, and they were reacting to every single joke right there. They were loving it. They were having themselves a good time. And here's what I tweeted here. Ask yourself, has there been anything created by Imagineering in the last 5 years that's given you the confidence that whatever they create for this space will resonate with audiences like this almost 35 years after opening? Now calculate the chances they will this time. And that's it. Like, I mean, a lot of people were saying, well, Guardians. Okay, maybe Guardians. That's Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, the roller coaster over there at Epcot at Walt Disney World. Maybe perhaps you can say, okay, that's one thing that will really resonate with fans.
Well,
now,
let's just say one thing about that.
Please.
Removing the Muppets is not quite the same thing as removing Ellen DeGeneres.
well, yes. Oh, I was just referring to the coaster itself, right?
No, I'm just saying, you know, it's like.
I would argue that even with that coaster, the bulk of that had actually been done by a former team of Imagineering before the big purge that happened in 2020. But let's just say that, you know, for the sake of argument, we include Cosmic Rewind. Well, that's one of many, many different projects by which, for which they've really they haven't really the enthusiasm for those maybe isn't as strong as Disney was intending for those to be. And that's the thing. To replace this attraction at all is heresy. But the idea that they think that they can is just truly remarkable. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, the thought that goes through my mind is this isn't like necessarily a new thought. It's that Disney does not understand their own IPs, what they own. Right? We've seen this time and time again. When it comes to the Muppets specifically, the last good Muppet thing was that 2011 Muppets movie. The second one, Muppets Most Wanted, was okay. It's kind of aged fairly well. Initially, I hated it. It's aged a little bit better. But all of the other stuff they tried to do, it's not hit. And it's because what they've tried to do is make the Muppets more modern. So instead of allowing the Muppets to be the Muppets. They're trying to make them feel like they're alive in the sense that you see their entire bodies the entire time. And so there's a lot of CGI and all that stuff that's going into it. What Disney fundamentally doesn't understand is people want to feel like the Muppets are alive and not like computers or robots. And so they actually want to see the real puppetry. That's the thing that people enjoy, is when they see these characters come to life on someone's hand. And so what's
the perfect comparison, and exactly what you're saying, Steve, is the dragons at Isle of Burke all over the place.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's you want that
People
wonder.
love all that stuff.
Like, so when Jim Henson, which we talked about on what's it called? Your show, Lou. Oh my God. And Lauren. Oh, my brain.
The genre guys. When we covered the Muppets.
Yes. We talked about that scene with the Muppets riding their bikes.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that went into that, where you don't see the strings. You know that there's like 100 different cranes going to make all these things come alive. Everyone is blown away. Now it's just computers. And so Disney, they can't get away from that stuff. People want to engage with the authentic. They want to engage with the real. People miss the old Disney because there was that authenticity, that actual creativity, not simply the nostalgia. So,
well, now that brings up a possible motive too. People miss the old much more when they have the original Muppets to compare it by unfavorably. So you're removing the context to criticize their modern stuff. They think if you remove the better stuff from the past.
Yeah. The thing that they need to do with the Muppets, which they never will, because from what I understand, the rights with the Muppets, when it comes to the actual production of them, is kind of in like a purgatory, hellish nightmare. And it's so because basically the Henson family has to approve of whatever the creatives do, and the creatives also have to approve of what's been approved. And it's just this weird cycle. They need to go back to doing something creative in that they're reimagining a Muppet version of an old story that everybody loves. Because they try to do too much modern. They need to go back in time and recreate a classic, get away from their own properties, find a public domain story and make it come alive with that unique twist. Again, the problem is they've just, as with every other element, they've axed all of the actual creative people that genuinely cared about the characters. Steve Whitmire being an example. And from what I understand, he was there for the closing of Muppet Vision 3D, yes, and engaging with fans, and people were bringing up all of their homemade Muppets. And so
I saw that video, yeah,
of him with being Rizzo, and you just miss it. Your heart.
And I understand Henson's daughter was the last person in line.
Correct.
Rumored, yeah.
Well, yes. So Jim Henson's daughter, from what I have been able to find, was one of the last in like the final showing to actually see Muppet Vision 3D, which I thought was a nice touch. And yes, Steve Whitmire was actually there. I'm trying to get the video in the background here to show that to everybody. But it's just, there's so much history, there's so much lore, there's so much nostalgia for something like this. And that's the thing, right? It's like, for Walt Disney World, you're never going to be able to compete with like the latest and greatest, at least with this Imagineering crew that you have. So your better bet going forward is to lean into nostalgia, not to axe it and compete, new for new with somebody who's got just a severe leg up on you, that being Universal Comcast.
Or to compare, and I know we keep doing it to death, but to compare with Universal's process, to at least test. Look at what Universal's done with the monsters. They opened that restaurant, right? To test, to see if people still gave a damn about Frankenstein and Dracula and all that. Found out they did and committed to Darkmoor. Look at, and the big one to me right now is Ghostbusters. Even after making a couple of totally wrong movies, they tested it with this parade, and now supposedly that's going in where the roller coaster's coming out at Universal Studios is a Ghostbusters themed attraction. So, there's lots of ways to test the water before you commit. Disney doesn't seem to, the way they test the water is by opening Moana's water.
Yeah, exactly. You can see right here on
turned
screen.
out negative, yes.
You can see on screen Steve Whitmire, the former voice of Kermit, by the way.
Yeah.
Now Matt Fogel. He was interacting with the crowd and really and really loving it. He's definitely a celebrity down there around this time, obviously. But doing the voice of Rizzo with somebody else's puppet right there, interacting with a puppet. I'm sorry, a Muppet version of Animal that somebody had constructed. Oh, go ahead, Steve, please.
No, on the note of Steve Whitmire, he vowed to never do the voice of Kermit ever again. And he's stuck to that promise. So like Rizzo was his own creation, which is why he's still doing it. But because he valued and loved Jim so much, when Disney fired him, he said, I cannot do Kermit anymore. Because Steve became Kermit, right? Like in his mind, like Kermit is his own person. So when Steve Whitmire took on that role, he actually took on the character. He actually, like, it wasn't a mantle. It was like Kermit is his own being, and Steve wanted to really embody Jim Henson, because Kermit is Jim Henson, and so Steve really knew him, whereas Matt Fogel, he doesn't even try. It's just sad. Like Matt Fogel understands some of the other characters, he doesn't understand. So it's the same problem that they've had though, because it's just the company's problem is they don't have the people that actually love the stuff, which I mean, we've seen this across the board.
Well, it was said, I don't know if it was Walt or somebody else, that animators are actors with a pencil. Well, puppeteers are actors with a puppet. I mean, they have the same emotional process, the same characterization process. And when they're good, when they're not just reading a script somebody handed them today and say, here, do this in that voice.
And to
end this, people are artists and rare, and you don't piss them off if you can help it.
And to end this this entire segment here on a very ironic note, I will say, do you know? Okay, so we know that they're replacing Muppet Vision 3D with Monsters Inc. Right? This is the new Monsters Inc. land that's going to be coming here. I don't know, sometime 3-4 years down the line. Who knows? But they're constructing it now, or at least it would appear. Do you know 2 days prior to the closing of Muppet Vision 3D for Monsters, you know what they announced at Disneyland? They announced Avatar, the world, basically a West Coast version of Pandora, although this one will be significantly different. Do you know what that's replacing? Monsters Incorporated. So there's definitely an IP hierarchy, and I guess Muppets is down below with Monsters in second, and then first is Avatar.
All of which proves that, damn it, Outback should have copyrighted Bloomin' Onions better. They would have been making royalties from Disneyland forever.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But I just think it's very, very funny that
if you go back for a second.
Please,
you go back to that others. At least there's blue.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's true. That's true. Well, for such a momentous attraction that's been with Disney's Hollywood Studios for almost 35 years, and for just a crowning achievement for Jim Henson. I mean, he was so excited to be working with Disney, actually bringing his Muppets characters to life in the parks. We never got to see so many of his great ideas actually personified with Disney. But I'm glad that for a short while there, it really resonated with fans as much as it did the Muppet Vision 3D, that is, both on both coasts, by the way. There was a point at which it existed at Disney California Adventure 2, but unfortunately that was replaced with Mickey's PhilharMagic later on. I was able to see this show multiple times. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad that people who did see it, well, it really, you can see people really did have a strong reaction to it. So I don't know what Disney's doing in their quest to modernize Walt Disney World and reduce
Hey,
operating costs.
I might have identified a trend earlier. It just occurred to me that the monster stuff at DCA replaced Superstar Limo, and wasn't Ellen in that?
Ellen, I believe Ellen, yeah, she was in that actually. Oh boy, yeah, Superstar Limo. Well, that's a whole attraction for another day.
Yeah.
For Jim Henson's Muppet Vision 3D, you know, it's sad to see it go, but hopefully, and here's hoping that something, I don't know, positive comes out of this in the form of whatever they're going to do at Aerosmith's Rock and Roller Coaster. Perhaps the replacement to Muppets, is a worthy successor. I pretty much doubt it, but unfortunately, sometimes this is how the cookie crumbles, and it's so sad. Oh man!
And by the
Lauren,
way,
what's the line?
By the way, what you said about people not knowing the older IPs, this obviously shows that they at least believe that the Muppets have more staying power than Aerosmith.
Yeah, well, perhaps yes. Lauren, what's the line from Indiana Jones 4? If we get to a certain point where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away, oh man, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's actually one of the lines I love from that movie. Yep.
Oh, what's a sad moment?
It's called A Salute to All Nations, but mostly America.
Great.
Sam, we salute you.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.